Hey Reddit, throw away for obvious reasons. I'm 31F, am in one of those no-win situations that I never thought I'd find myself in, especially not with my own mom. But here we are. A little context first. I've always had a complicated relationship with my mother, Brenda, 56F. She raised me and my younger brother, Kyle, 28M, mostly on her own after my dad left when I was around 10. We never had much growing up, hand-me-downs, food stamps, lights being cut off for technical issues. You get the picture. Brenda did what she could, I'll give her that. She worked a lot of double shifts at a local diner and picked up odd jobs here and there. But, and this is a big but, she's never been good with money. Ever. Payday came, and within 2 days, it was gone. She had a habit of treating herself when bills were due, and she always found someone else to blame for the fallout. Utilities got cut off? The power company's full of thieves. Rent went up? Landlords trying to screw me over. Credit card late fees? The bank is predatory. You get the gist. I learned early on to fend for myself. I started working part-time when I was 15, got scholarships, went to college, and I'm now working in mid-level management at a tech firm. I rent a small but nice apartment with my fiancé, Marcus, 33M, and I've worked really hard to build up a decent emergency fund, pay off my student loans, and contribute regularly to my 401k. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. That's a huge deal for me. Now to the meat of the issue. About 3 months ago, Brenda called me sobbing. Like ugly crying, breathless sobbing. I honestly thought someone had died. But no, it turns out, she was in deep. She'd taken out a couple of high-interest payday loans, maxed out 3 credit cards, and was behind on rent. To top it off, she had 2 outstanding traffic tickets that had gone into collections, and a warrant was about to be issued for failure to appear. Her total debt? Roughly $18,000. I'll say that again. $18,000. She begged me for help. Said she was drowning. That she had no one else and that I was her only hope. I asked about Kyle, but she quickly snapped, "Don't bother. Your brother's useless." For the record, Kyle is kind of a mess, but still, cold. Anyway, I told her I needed time to go over everything. I wanted to be careful. Marcus and I sat down and looked over our finances, and after a lot of back and forth, we figured we could safely give her $5,000 without putting ourselves in danger. That was our emergency fund buffer, not pocket change, but we were willing to help. When I called her the next evening to tell her our offer, her tone flipped like a switch. "What do you mean, just 5,000, she said. "You make, what, 75 a year? You can definitely give me more. You're just being selfish." I tried to stay calm. I reminded her we had bills, a wedding coming up next spring, and that we didn't want to jeopardize our future. Her reply? "You're not family. You're just another person who thinks they're better than me now. A damn traitor." Yeah. That word stuck. Traitor. I told her flat out, "I'm not saying I won't help you. I just won't go broke to do it." I even offered to help her negotiate with creditors, draft a budget, and look into a debt relief counselor. I wanted to support her, but in a sustainable way. She wasn't hearing it. She hung up. Then came the texts. Wall after wall of messages. Some begging, some guilt-tripping, some outright abusive. Screenshots of her overdue bills. Photos of her sad face. She even sent one of an empty fridge. The worst one? A picture of a noose she captioned, "Is this what you want?" Yes, I called her to check she was safe. She claimed it was just a cry for help. It was manipulative as hell, and I knew it. After that, I stopped replying for a few days. Needed space. Then, Brenda went nuclear. She started calling family members. My aunt in Florida, my cousin in Ohio, even my estranged uncle in Nevada. All of them started blowing up my phone with messages like, "How could you do this to your mother? She raised you alone, now you leave her to rot? Money doesn't buy love, but apparently, lack of money buys abandonment. Marcus, bless him, was ready to block everyone. But I was still clinging to this hope that I could fix this. So a week later, I called Brenda again. I calmly told her my offer still stood, $5,000, plus help restructuring her financial plan, but nothing more. I reiterated that it wasn't that I didn't want to help, it's that I needed to protect myself, too. Her response? She laughed. A bitter, biting laugh. You don't get it, do you? We're a family. In a family, we all chip in. Not just what's convenient. You think this makes you better? You think your little 401k and emergency fund make you untouchable? Don't be surprised when you need help and no one shows up. That hit hard. Because here's the kicker, I've always helped her. Over the years, I've paid for groceries, fixed her car, covered rent more than once. I even bailed her out when Kyle crashed her old minivan and she didn't have insurance. It's not like I've been cold-hearted. But now, because I'm not offering to bleed myself dry, I'm the villain? I hung up. Cried for an hour. Then started wondering, am I the asshole? The silence that followed was deafening. After that last call with Brenda, I didn't hear from her for almost 2 weeks. No texts, no voicemails, no third-party relatives trying to shame me into opening my wallet. Just a nothing. At first, I thought it was over. I thought maybe she was cooling off, realizing she'd gone too far. Maybe she was finally going to accept that help doesn't mean everything, and that there are limits. That boundaries aren't betrayal. But nah. That was just the calm before the emotional hurricane. It started with Kyle. He showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Sunday afternoon, stinking of weed and cologne like he'd just rolled out of bed in a trap house. He looked pissed, like someone had told him I'd personally sold his PlayStation for crack. Damn, Haley, he said as soon as I opened the door. You're really screwing with Mom like that? I didn't even invite him in. Just stood there holding the door halfway open. I offered her $5,000, I said flatly. I didn't screw anyone. He scoffed. Yeah, but you make money, dude. You're the only one of us who got out, and now you want to act like that means you're too good to help? That's some real traitor shit. There it was again. Traitor. I asked Kyle point blank how much he had helped her. If he had even tried to help her talk to her landlords or maybe called about consolidating her credit cards. His response? Man, I got my own shit. I'm behind on my phone bill and my car's 2 months from being repoed. Don't turn this on me. He wasn't there to fix anything. He was just the next mouthpiece. A walking guilt trip. I asked him to leave, and when he didn't move, Marcus stepped in from the hallway and said, she said go. Kyle muttered something under his breath and stormed off. That night, I got another text from Brenda. Short and cold. So you sent Marcus to bully your brother now? You're disgusting. It honestly made my stomach flip. Because this wasn't just her being manipulative anymore, it was like she was rewriting reality. Spinning this narrative where I was this cold, greedy, corporate drone trying to stomp on my poor, helpless family from my high-rise tower of privilege. Newsflash, I live in a 2-bedroom walk-up and drive a 10-year-old Camry. And still, I felt guilty. That's the worst part. That under all the rage and self-righteousness, some small, pathetic part of me still wondered if I was wrong. I talked to Marcus about it again that night. He was sitting on the couch with his laptop open, budgeting for our wedding next April. I curled up beside him and asked, am I being selfish? He closed the laptop and just looked at me. No, he said. You're being smart. You've spent your whole life cleaning up after people who never once thought about how it affected you. You're allowed to stop. I nodded, but it didn't really sink in. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. This time, it was UPS's no drama. But the package they handed me was from Brenda. Inside was a cardboard folder stuffed with papers, unpaid bills, red-stamped collection notices, court summons. And on top, a handwritten letter. Haley. Since you want to analyze the finances so much, here's the truth. Look at what I owe. Look at the dates. You want to talk about budgeting? Fine. Budget this. You don't know what it's like to carry 2 kids on your back for 20 years and get nothing in return. You say you want to help, but you're not helping. You're trying to control me. That's not love. That's manipulation. But I'm still your mother. And if you really think $5,000 is enough to make up for everything I've sacrificed, then you're more heartless than I thought. B. I sat on the kitchen floor just staring at it. Not the bills, I already knew it was a mess. Payday loans with 38% interest. A rent ledger that showed 6 months of partial payments and friendly extensions. A bounced check from the DMV. She even had a $400 DoorDash charge from 1 month alone. What got me was the letter. The tone. The accusation. It was like she believed she was the victim of my success. Like every choice I made to avoid her path was somehow an attack on her. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called out of work, brewed a whole pot of coffee, and sat down at the table with all the papers. I created a spreadsheet. Grouped the debt types. Tracked the minimums. Made some calls pretending to be Brenda. She authorized me over the phone. By noon, I had a pretty solid grasp of her financial reality. She wasn't just in over her head, she was drowning. But she was also spending like she had floaties. $85 on takeout the same week she didn't pay rent? Subscriptions to Hulu, Netflix, and Disney Plus on 2 separate accounts? One creditor told me she'd opened 3 store cards in the last year. I took a break, sat on the balcony, and tried to breathe. Then I called her. I told her I'd gone through everything and had a plan. That we could call some of these places, work out settlements. Maybe even talk to a credit counselor. But we had to be honest about the budget. No more $20 lipstick charges when rent's due. No more buying things to feel rich while bleeding money underneath. Her response? So now I'm a child who can't be trusted with money? I didn't rise to it. I said, I'm not calling you a child. I'm saying if you want help, you have to be part of the solution. You're 56, Mom. This can't keep happening. There was a long pause. Then she hung up. I just sat there, holding the phone to my ear, listening to that cold silence. And I really knew, that she didn't want a partner. She wanted a savior. And since I wouldn't play that part, she was cutting me loose. Again. But this time, I wasn't going to chase her. A week passed. Then 2. Still nothing from Brenda. No texts. No voicemails. No guilt-tripping forwards from family. It was like she ghosted me completely, which, weirdly, felt both peaceful and terrifying. I kept waiting for the next bomb to drop. Every day I expected another letter, or a phone call from a relative screaming at me again. But no, just radio silence. I threw myself into work, wedding planning, and binging true crime shows with Marcus. But underneath it all, the tension just sat in my chest like a stone. And then one night, it finally happened. I got home from work, opened my email, and there it was, a message from Brenda. Subject line, budget. The body of the email was shockingly short. You still want to help with the budget? If so, meet me tomorrow at 4 p.m. My place. Bring your laptop. Mom. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of the fight. No warmth. Just a cold request. Marcus wasn't thrilled. He asked if I was sure I wanted to go. I told him I wasn't, but that I had to at least see if she was serious this time. So the next day, I drove over to her apartment. The place was even more rundown than I remembered. Paint peeling in the hallway. Trash bag outside someone's door. I knocked on hers and waited. She opened it after a few seconds, wearing old sweatpants and a tank top with a bleach stain across the chest. Her eyes looked tired. Like, exhausted. And her apartment, it was cluttered, sure, but not in the disaster zone way I expected. It looked like someone had actually started tidying up. There was a garbage bag near the door. unopened mail stacked neatly on the counter. She didn't hug me. Didn't even really greet me. Just motioned to the table. "Laptop," she said. So I sat down and opened it. I didn't know what to expect. Another argument? Another guilt trip? But instead, Brenda brought over a folder, an actual organized folder, and placed it in front of me. Inside were all her expenses. Printed out. Highlighted. Rent, $940. Utilities, $180. Food, $300. Debt minimums, $680. Subscriptions, crossed out with red pen. "You were right," she said. I looked up. Brenda was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking everywhere but at me. "You were right," she repeated, quieter. I was spending like money would just magically appear. I didn't say anything. She walked over, sat across from me, and took a deep breath. "I haven't fixed it. Not yet. But I want to. I'm scared, Haley. Like really scared. I haven't been able to sleep. But I know now that if I don't change something, I'm gonna end up homeless or dead." I blinked. Because this was a different person. Not manipulative. Not angry. Not performative. Just human. Flawed and scared. "I've already canceled the cards," she said. "Got on the phone with Capital One and Target. Asked them to freeze the accounts. I sold the TV. And the second-hand couch. I'm keeping the futon." That's when I saw it, a single sheet of paper, handwritten. A personal budget. Her handwriting was messy, but she'd written it out line by line. It even included a $30 line for fun money. I read it 3 times just to be sure. She was really trying. And suddenly, all that anger I'd been holding on to started melting into something else, something harder to admit. Relief. Because I hadn't stopped loving my mom. I'd just stopped trusting her. And now, maybe, just maybe, she was trying to earn that trust back. We spent the next 2 hours going over everything. I showed her how to use Mint and set up automatic reminders for rent. We called one of her collectors and got a verbal agreement for a settlement on the smallest balance. She was quiet for most of it, just nodding, scribbling notes on a yellow legal pad. And then, halfway through the second phone call, she said something I'll never forget. "I'm sorry for calling you a traitor." I stopped typing. She wasn't looking at me when she said it. Just staring at her legal pad, pen tapping anxiously. I was scared. And embarrassed. I thought if you didn't save me, no one would. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't say anything right away. Then I finally replied, "I'm not trying to abandon you, Mom. I just need to know that helping you isn't the same as losing myself." She nodded. Still not looking at me. "I get that now." There was a long silence. Then she stood up, walked to the fridge, and opened it. "Wanna stay for dinner?" I made pasta. Cheap and ugly, but edible. I laughed, despite myself. I stayed. The tension wasn't gone. Not entirely. We didn't hug when I left. She didn't say she loved me. And I still walked out feeling like I'd been inside a very delicate house of cards. But for the first time in weeks, there was a path forward. Shaky. Narrow. But real. I got home that night, climbed into bed beside Marcus, and told him everything. He just pulled me into his chest and whispered, "I'm proud of you." I didn't cry. But I could've. Things didn't change overnight. That would have been too clean, too Hollywood. The reality was slower, messier, and filled with these awkward silences where I could almost feel my mom holding back old instincts, the guilt trips, the passive-aggressive digs, the need to shift blame. But she didn't let them out. Not like before. She kept showing up. Twice a week, we met, sometimes over Zoom, sometimes in person, to go over her budget, track progress, call creditors. Brenda even made an Excel sheet titled the Get My Shit Together Project. And yeah, that made me laugh. She cut back. Hard. Sold her iPad. Cancelled cable. Switched to prepaid wireless. She even started picking up shifts cleaning houses through a local Facebook group. I watched her scrub out someone's baseboards once on video chat. It was surreal. And then, about a month into this new routine, she did something I never expected. She made a payment. To me. It was $100. A small envelope with crisp 20s and a handwritten note that just said, "A start. For the $5,000. I'm not your charity case." That one broke me a little. I sat in my car after opening it, clutching the envelope like it was the last note I'd ever get from her. It wasn't about the money. It was the fact that she wanted to prove something, not to me, necessarily, but maybe to herself. That she could be someone who didn't always need rescuing. A few weeks later, things took another left turn. I was at work when my phone buzzed, a text from Brenda. "Call me." Something happened. My stomach dropped. I imagined the worst. A relapse, a new loan, eviction. But when I called, her voice was different, tight, anxious, but not panicked. "Don't freak out," she said. "But I just had lunch with Kyle." I blinked. "You what?" She exhaled. "He showed up yesterday, yelling about how I turned into your puppet. Said I was letting you run my life like I'm your intern. I told him to sit down and shut up, and then I bought him a burger." "Okay?" I told him everything. The debt, the budget, the help you gave me. I told him if he's going to criticize, he better bring a damn spreadsheet next time. That made me snort. And what did he say? He sulked. But he listened. I think maybe it clicked. Maybe he saw I was serious. I didn't hold my breath. Kyle had a long road ahead of him, longer than hers, probably. But hearing that Brenda stood up for me? That she defended me instead of joining in? That was new. And it meant something. A few nights later, I was back at her place. We'd just finished calculating how much she could save over 6 months by switching to generic groceries. She was proud of the $227 number circled in pink highlighter. Then, she got quiet. "I've been thinking," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "I always thought family meant giving everything," she continued. "That if you didn't give someone your last dollar, your last breath, you were selfish. That's what I learned growing up. Grandma guilt-tripped me into debt before I even had a bank account." She paused, eyes distant. "But that's not love. That's just drowning together." I didn't say anything. I let her talk. "You weren't a traitor, Haley. You were just the first one who learned how to swim." My throat tightened. I stared at her, unsure what to say. She shrugged. Took me a while to see it. I closed the laptop slowly. "You're not drowning anymore," I said softly. "Not yet," she smiled. "But I'm dog paddling like hell." We both laughed. For the first time in years, it felt like we weren't on opposite sides of something. We were in the same boat, facing the same storm. Of course, not everything was sunshine. There were still slips. She got hit with a $60 overdraft when she forgot her electric bill's auto payment timing. She tried to blame the bank, but then admitted she bought wine and forgot it was coming out the next morning. There were also small moments, comments like "must be nice to afford Starbucks" or "wish I could just throw away money on fancy cheese," that made me grit my teeth. But she caught herself more often now. And when I pointed it out, she didn't bite. She'd just sigh and nod, like someone slowly undoing decades of muscle memory. One night, as I was packing up to leave her apartment, she handed me something. It was an old photo of me, maybe 10 years old, sitting on the porch with a popsicle and my science fair ribbon in hand. My eyes were shining, grinning from ear to ear. "You were always different," she said. "Always looking ahead." I didn't always get it. I guess I was scared you'd leave us behind. I held the photo gently. "I never wanted to leave you," I said. "I just didn't want to get stuck." She nodded, quietly. "I get that now. For the first time in years, I hugged her, not out of obligation, not from pity or guilt, but because I wanted to. And she hugged me back. Later that night, Marcus and I sat on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us. I told him everything, all the details. He listened, like always. Then he asked, "Do you think she's changed?" I thought about it. "I think she's trying," I said. "And that's more than she's ever done before." He leaned his head against mine. "Then that's a start." And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was carrying a boulder on my back. I felt lighter. Not finished. Not fixed. But lighter. 3 months later, Brenda paid off her smallest credit card. It wasn't much, just over $400, mostly interest and late fees, but she did it entirely on her own. No help from me, no borrowed money, no dramatic phone calls begging for a miracle. She called me that evening, breathless, like a kid who just scored her first touchdown. "It's gone," she said. "I got the email confirmation and everything. Zero balance." I even printed it out and stuck it to the fridge. I could hear the pride in her voice. And under that, something even rarer, hope. It hit me then, like a punch straight to the chest, that for the first time in her adult life, my mother was learning that self-worth didn't have to come from sacrifice. That dignity wasn't measured in how much you suffer for others. She was learning to survive without self-destructing. A few weeks later, Brenda invited me and Marcus over for dinner. That alone was a milestone. Normally she'd dodge social stuff, embarrassed about her apartment or saying she was too tired. But this time she initiated it. Said she wanted to cook like a grown-up and show us her progress. The place looked different. Still small. Still cramped. But the energy had shifted. Clutter was gone. Dishes were done. She'd even bought a plant. It was dying, but the effort was alive. She made baked ziti, cheap, easy, delicious. Lit a candle in a jar that said Lavender Dreams on it. Played some smooth R&B on her Bluetooth speaker. It felt like some alt-universe version of her had been sneaking in to rearrange the energy while she slept. Over dinner, she handed me a fresh spreadsheet. It showed her new budget, projected savings, remaining debts, and even a timeline for being out of collections entirely by next year. At the bottom was a highlighted note. Stretch goal, credit score over 620 by December. I didn't cry, but my throat ached the whole time I was reading it. She was really doing it. Marcus raised his glass, his plastic cup of ginger ale, and said to Brenda, "Reformed budget badass." She laughed. Loud and real. A few days after that, I got an unexpected call. It was my cousin Lauren from Ohio. We hadn't talked in years. She was one of the ones who sent me those passive-aggressive texts early on, back when Brenda first spread the "Haley betrayed us" story. "I just wanted to say," Lauren started awkwardly, "I heard you helped your mom out." Like, really helped. Not just money. I hesitated, unsure where this was going. "She called my mom," Lauren continued. "Told her she's getting her life together. Said she owes a lot of it to you. I guess I was wrong about you." It wasn't exactly an apology, but I didn't need it to be. The olive branch was there. People were noticing. Because Brenda was changing. And that change was real. Fast forward to now, about 6 months since all this began. Brenda still owes a lot. She's still living in a modest apartment. Still working extra hours scrubbing tile floors in strangers' homes. But she's climbing. One step at a time. And every month, she sends me a screenshot of her credit monitoring app with the subject line, "Look. Up by 12 points. We still argue sometimes. She still slips into old patterns. But I've learned to push back without spiraling." She's learning how to accept limits without seeing them as rejection. And the biggest change? She respects the boundary. When I say, "I can't do that right now," she doesn't accuse or guilt or weaponize her pain. She says, "Okay. Thanks for what you can do." That's a sentence I never thought I'd hear from her. Looking back, I think what hurt the most wasn't the money, or even the pressure. It was the accusation that I was a traitor. Because all I ever wanted was to help, just not at the cost of drowning with her. When I said that line, "We're not that kind of family where one person gives everything, and everyone else takes until it's gone," I meant it as a boundary. But now I realize it was also a challenge. Because maybe we could become a different kind of family. One where help means growth, not martyrdom. Where love doesn't look like self-destruction. Where responsibility isn't a one-way street paved with shame. That version of family is still a work in progress. But at least now, we're building it together. Brick by brick. One overdue payment at a time. AITA for refusing to pay off all of my mom's debt? Reddit, I don't think I am anymore. But damn, it took a long time to see why.